Hello, everyone. I'm so glad to be here today. As I said, my name is Jenna. My pronouns are she, her. I identify as sapphic, aromantic, asexual, and queer. And I am the founder of Prism, Esri's ERG. Prism is proud to be part of the global leader in geographic information systems. If you don't know what that is, that's okay. But we essentially do mapping software for pretty much anything that needs location mapping. So yeah, so glad to be here today, Meg.
Excellent. All right. Now you have a bonkers history when it comes to writing and editing, which is amazing, but it's also a kind of a left turn for people, for somebody working at a tech company like Esri. Could you tell us a little bit about your background and the kind of journey that led you to where you are currently?
Yeah, absolutely. On my resume, it looks a little wild, but it really is amazing to see how things have all come together. I have a journalism degree. I was editing student publications from like middle school. I've like held an editorial title since I was 14 years old, and all the way through university. And so when you're part of student publications or an organization like that, leadership and taking ownership of your part to play in your organization is a really key part of your story from the very beginning. So I think that's a really great way for students to get involved in professional organizations, even as teenagers. So I went to work as the founding managing editor of a magazine for parents and mentors of teenagers. If you have a healthy adult in your life, you're more likely to grow into a healthy adult yourself from your teen years. Then I went on to become a copy editor for the largest religious magazine in the world. And so it's a really strange thing, but when you graduate with a journalism degree in 2011, that was a time, of course, in journalism where things were not going well, especially for the magazine industry, and funds and revenue came from more diverse sources in nonprofit organizations because a lot of it's funded through donors or other products or events and things like that. So religious media world was hiring, and I was not necessarily aware that the religious environment I was from was much more progressive than the ones that were actually running these organizations. So we were using a lot of the same terms and language, but that is not
Not
actually
meaning the
what,
same thing. Yeah.
right, not the same. We did not mean the same things by those terms. And so I got to a place where I was like, oh no, I'm queer and I really want to come out. And the unfortunate truth was, though, I loved magazine editing. I was made for it. Like, this is what I've been training for since I was a kid. Like, I got my dream job and then got to that place and realized this was not a safe place to be queer or to be out, and to hold the beliefs that I held. And so that was a really unfortunate, really hard decision to make that pivot then. But it was amazing to find Esri that is very values driven, very mission driven, about making the world a better place, and not just about a bottom line or about numbers. You feel like you have something valuable to contribute to the world, and you actually are making a difference. So that was a very natural actual transition for me, even though what I'm doing now is editing product help documentation and blogs and books and tutorials about how to use software that I myself am not an expert in. So
I can understand that perspective as well. I get to have great conversations with people like you who know all kinds of things that I have never even heard of before. So I'm right there with you. All right, can you tell us a little bit about Prism, why you founded it? And I'm actually really curious to hear how you landed on that name.
yeah, when I arrived at Esri in September of 2019, I moved here right after Labor Day. I had they just recently started using Microsoft Teams, which was incredible timing because, of course, as we know, a couple months later, all of a sudden everyone in the world was remote and online and thriving on Teams and Slack and programs like that to survive as a business.
Yeah.
And so it was amazing timing that we had just implemented Teams right before the pandemic, and I had managed to make it into the office and make some connections there. So it's September, October comes around, National Coming Out Day. Someone posted on our LGBTQIA channel about National Coming Out Day an article and their own coming out story, which then responded. Other people started coming out of the woodwork and responding and saying, "Oh, that's amazing, congrats!" And I commented on there and said, "Do we ever meet in person? I've only been here 4 weeks. Like, can we get together?" And they said, "Sure, when and where." And so that's how I accidentally founded an employee resource group by simply asking, hey, I would love queer friends. How can I manufacture queer friends for myself in a brand new place? 6 weeks after moving across the country, starting a new job in a new industry, coming out publicly myself in a city where I did not know anybody at a brand new company. So others at Esri joined in the ERG leadership team. Obviously, we needed a lot more people and more experienced people. We landed on Prism as a group name just because we wanted something that reflected the diversity and intersectionality we aspire to. So yes, LGBTQIA is already a group of identities, and that is reflected in the Prism name. But we acknowledge how disability, neurodivergence, race, culture, background, education, class, family, like all these things affect our work and our identities and what we are bringing to Esri and its mission. So that's kind of the idea behind Prism, is a very common name for LGBTQ organizations, and I think that's for a good reason. So.
Yeah, it absolutely. I mean, it conjures a lot of very visual imagery. The second I hear it, I think of the Pink Floyd album cover because that's who I was raised by. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a really excellent terminology for something. And I have so much empathy in my heart. I also messed around and didn't realize I was creating an ACOTAR book club in 2020. So you are like one phone call to a friend of, hey, have you read these books? Turned into, okay, my husband now reads them. I've got 17 friends that are like, so I can see how this would snowball absolutely overnight. The second one person is like, hey, do we ever do this in person? They're like, yes, we do now. So, but this is the thing, right? I feel like a lot of times when people hear about like, oh, you're the founder of such and such, you must have had a grand plan. No, I will tell you right now, I've talked to a bunch of people that have founded ERGs. Almost no one was like, I went to school for this. I planned this for 3 years before we launched. You know, I very much appreciate kind of necessity being the mother of invention here.
Absolutely.
Very, very cool. Okay, so now like we just said, you know, a lot of people are looking to start an ERG in case they don't just trip and fall into it on their own. What first steps should people be taking? Like, what do you think is the very first step if somebody's sitting there thinking to themselves, I want to start an ERG?
Yeah, and I joke about it being like accidental ERG founding, but I knew what I needed because I had just come from a place where it was not safe for me to be out at work, and they were talking so much about good stuff like racial diversity and disability awareness and accessibility, and like their heart was really in the right place. But just when it came to career issues, it was like absolutely not. This is and we can't handle it. And so I was like, there is an element of diversity here that we're not talking about and we're not even allowed to talk about. And so coming from that environment that I had already been involved in a lot of DEI type of stuff, but just not, you can't say that word. So I was coming in with a little bit of preparation of knowing what I was doing, and wanted a place that was very intentional, that was off campus, was not involved with your work profile at all. So if you wanted to come and not be out, all you had to do was just look at the channel and teams and say, okay, I'm going to meet up with them and we're going to do trivia and we're going to hang out and have fun and just be really chill. The first thing that I really recommend doing, regardless of what your background is or what you're trying to achieve with this, is just what we did, is start with a getting to know you session. Get to know the people, set up an introductory event, post it on every company channel you have access to. If you have the ability to email it out to everybody, but Slack, Teams, message boards, putting up signs by the coffee station if you have to go into a physical office, whatever you can do to reach the broadest number of people. And then once you've achieved that, you have everybody sitting around, share your names, share your pronouns, your identities, coming out stories. Then here's the key: ask what they need, because you cannot anticipate it. And so if you're coming to things like this, yes, that's a great way to get ideas, but you need to know what actually the people in your organization, what their actual needs are. And so you're not just coming into a space being like, well, we need a such and such. And it's like, well, nobody's asking for that. Or like, hey, there's actually a really urgent need here. And oh, I'm cis, I never thought of that. We don't have gender affirming healthcare or something like that. And so I think sharing those stories and then developing that relationship to ask what people actually really need, and what are their barriers and challenges in their workplace, what are the structural issues affecting them at the company. Something as simple as gender neutral restrooms. I mean, it's not simple when it goes to facilities, but it is simple as far as like, oh my gosh, that never occurred to me because I fit into a gender binary, and society, and what is going on out there for people that maybe we can use even our technical skills. GIS is a very obvious one, but app building, there's some really cool stuff going on in technology to help the queer community itself. And so we in tech have some amazing skills that we can actually put into action to be activism. And that ties into your professional work as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I very much appreciate that the first question is, what do you all need? Because just because you're the person that is going to organize does not necessarily mean that you have your pulse on what people in this org need, or people within the demographic that you're trying to serve. And honestly, even if you are from well within the demographic, that does not mean that your needs or what you think, reflects everyone, because no group is a monolith, all right?
Mhm.
And so I think it is really important that we talk about, asking to start with. Um, I just came from Columbus Pride 2 weekends ago, and it was one of those things where I thought to myself, wow, rubber wristbands are really like holding the fabric of this together, aren't they? Because like everybody somehow thinks that that's what we all need. And it's like, okay, those are great. You know what else would be great? Gender affirming care. You know what else would be good?
Mhm.
Like bathroom space for us all to be able to go to the bathroom. So I think that's really wonderful. Now, if people are trying to get started with an ERG, getting leadership buy-in is, it's a must-have, obviously, especially if you want to throw either company resources behind this group, or try and make sure that people are aware that the company supports this. It's not just a grassroots org. What are some tips that you can share with people if they're trying to get their own leaders invested in their ERG? How did this work out for you?
Yeah. So for us, just straight up, it's the collaboration started at Esri after some minor attempts. Like we had worked with our events team and they were good about getting like pronouns on the badges for conference. So we're grateful for that. And, little things kind of here and there had been in development long before I even got here. But the actual regular collaboration with an actual liaison and HR we're so grateful for came organically because they cared. The key leaders in our organization reached out to us and said, hey, I know you exist as an ERG. We're the talent acquisition team. We would like to diversify our recruiting efforts. That is a value that we hold. We would like more queer employees at Esri, and we're curious why we don't have any. And the Prism leadership was very honest and said, we would love to do this, but we don't feel like Esri is ready. We can't advertise ourselves as a place that is safe for LGBTQ people. It's welcoming, absolutely. Like it's not where I came from, where you can't be out at all. Like obviously you could definitely be out at Esri, but just is the structure of this organization in place that we could say this is a great place to be queer. And we needed to take some steps first. So we partnered with HR and we worked to implement many of these needed changes. And we have more in progress. So I feel confident today to come to Power to Fly, or we partner with other organizations that do similar work and say, yes, please come work for Esri. Like this is a great place to be queer. And we could use your help in making it even better because we have a trajectory. We have more stuff. There's always room for improvement. Even if you have a perfect score on the HRC equity index, which no one does here, but it's like we're working on these things. And it's like, even if you are reaching this point where you think your goals are accomplished, there will always be more to make it a better place because there's so many areas of intersectionality and we are constantly growing and doing better. So it's about putting allyship into action as a verb, not just claiming it as a noun. And the key is to have a company whose values truly align with your own to work together toward a common goal, because if you don't have that, you're in the wrong company. Like you cannot accomplish this unless you have a company whose values are already there and who values that diversity. And it's just a matter of partnering with the ERG and HR and facilities and events and whatever organization you are involved in, all these different onboarding and training, everything. You've got every element of this company, not just developers and tech and that sort of thing, but truly every department across the company needs to hold the value of being willing to partner, thinking that this is a good thing, and being open to collaboration and feedback, and being told like, hey, you're doing great work, but we would really love to see improvement in this specific area. What can we do to make that happen? And even if it doesn't happen this year, what steps can we put in place so that it's on the budget for next year? What steps can we put in place so it's on the renovations, schedule for this building that doesn't have a gender neutral restroom? And those are the type of things that we work on long term. So
Yeah.
if you have started an ERG and you don't see a perfect organization in 3 months, please do not be discouraged, because this is going to take a while.
Well,
People
yeah,
were
I mean,
working
these
on
systems
this,
they
right, a
didn't
long
come into
time.
place overnight. It's going to take a while to either dismantle them or replace them with something else or change them otherwise. And, like you said, like if you have a company that you know what their values are, and they are at least a little bit in alignment with what you want to do, then you have an opening. But I do love what you had said earlier about, like, the HR team wants to get in on this and they want to make sure that they're making improvements. But the ERG was able and comfortable enough to be able to say, hey, we're not there yet. Let's not advertise ourselves as LGBTQ friendly when actually the situation is not where we want it to be yet. Because you're right, this is a marathon, not a sprint, and it is a lifelong one that we are all going to be on truly until we die. So, since we all have improvements that we can make, it just makes sense that we want to move everyone forward at once.
Right. And I think that's something a little nuanced there, as we always say, oh, rainbow capitalism of don't just change your rainbow, your logo or whatever. But I need HR and companies to understand the point behind that is the hypocrisy in it.
Yeah.
It's not, we don't want that. Obviously, we do. We do want your rainbow logo. We do want you to be an ally. We do want you to say you're LGBTQ friendly. But the point being that step one is not saying it. Step one is doing it. And so doing it, putting into action first. And then please do change your rainbow. Please sponsor Pride. Please do all these things. The reason that we are mad about rainbow capitalism is because companies will do these things and sponsor Pride events and then donate money toward homophobic politicians or people who are working to outlaw trans, healthcare or things like that. So it's like the idea is that in an ideal world, it would be both. That not only would you be proud of saying that you are a safe place for queer people to work and a safe place for customers or clients and partnering with LGBTQ chambers of commerce or organizations, but that you would also actually be doing those things and putting it into action and not just saying and putting your branding on something rainbow. Like, please do that, but it's a both and that you have to have the receipts to back it up. So I think companies sometimes get all scared because they're like, oh, we don't want to be like that company that everybody complains about. It's like, well, put in the work and do the work, and then you will have earned the right to call yourself an ally. Yeah,
of course. Okay, now obviously running Prism is not the entirety of what you do for Esri, and it can be a big struggle to try and balance responsibilities of running an ERG with whatever your day job is. That's generally the reason why you're at that company. How do you avoid burnout and make sure that role responsibilities get distributed so that you're not the only one carrying all of this?
Yeah, that's definitely something I've had to work on over the past 4 years. This has been a pretty crazy 4 years to start an LGBTQ organization. One way is to put boundaries around it. Define who you are. What is this? So we saw the need for a GIS industry queer advocacy organization, but I and my co-leader said, we can't do that. We cannot sustainably run this because we have other things happening. So we do have a LinkedIn group called Queer in GIS. If you work in GIS, please look that up on LinkedIn to form it organically. But we put zero effort or time or resources into it because that is not our mission. Our mission is specific to being an internal employee resource group for Esri queer employees and allies, creating internal change and community at our own company. So having that boundary around it and not having Prism expand to being, something bigger than anyone can handle. A fluid leadership team helps with this. So we've had Prism leadership is always open to anyone who wants to join, whether you want to be involved for a single event. Some people will come on for an initiative like a gender affirming healthcare, which we now have, and they have transitioned off because they achieved their goal. And so, or life gets busy, or, you might start advocating for this organization and leading it, and then decide like, actually, there's something in my community that I need to be involved in because the school board's being taken over by homophobic parents, or, like there's something that's always kind of flowing and transitioning in life. And that is part of queerness, and the messiness of queerness is that it's very fluid. And we want to reflect that in our leadership team, is that people are free to come on, stay as long as they need, and then transition off whenever they feel like that is the right time for them. So I think that helps a lot. Corporate and manager support. It's a volunteer organization. This is not part of our day jobs. We are limited in our capacity. We don't have a budget. And we do get paid for our official corporate work that we do with HR. But as far as like putting on a Pride event or, something like that, that's not really going to be part of our paid work. And so we do try to partner with HR as much as we can to, be part of our jobs in that capacity. But for the most part, this is a volunteer thing that you are doing because you care about it, not because you are required to, and it's not part of your performance review or things like that. So.
No, I think you make some really good points, right? That you want to make sure that you are doing what you can to support this effort, but boundaries are incredibly important, especially in a situation where you know you're not getting paid for this. Like you get paid for your job, and this is all like kind of extra on top of it. And I think that that's an important thing to keep in mind, not just if you are an ERG of one, but if you are an ERG of hundreds, it's still important to remember that, one person cannot do all of this, nor should they. And that you do need to respect what your own boundaries are and what your own limitations are. Because again, marathon, not a sprint. So even if you are, like you said, like, signing up to helm one activity or something, that's fine. If that's what you can do, then that's what you can do.
Yeah.
If you are the person that just comes to every meeting and you're like, yeah, these are great ideas, but you're not putting forth any of your own, okay, fine. Maybe that's what you can take on that day. That's excellent. Allyship is a verb, but nobody says it has to be an extreme verb, right?
And that you don't have to do everything also can be, I think the opposite of that is that people sit around sometimes waiting for permission. So they don't feel like they have the authority. They haven't been given
Like
the
nobody points to you and says, here, you do that.
permission. Right, exactly. And so I think, if you're wondering, if you're sitting there going, gosh, why doesn't our pride, organization do this? Why doesn't our queer organization, do XYZ? I'd really love like if we had a book club to go through queer books and things. And it's like, well, it doesn't happen because you didn't do it. And so I don't have the capacity to do it. So if you're sitting here wondering, what does an organization do XYZ is like, the reason is because we need you, your gifts, your talents, your expertise, your interest, your passion, your time, your money, like whatever it is that you have to give. The reason we haven't done anything is because you are a vital part of the queer community. And whether you're ally, whether you're HR, whether you're, just listening to this because you were told to by your boss or whatever, like, you are a vital part of the queer community, and it is time to empower ourselves to stop waiting for permission. Maybe do go to the leaders and say, hey, I have an idea, could I do this, could I execute this? So they know what's happening, of course, and can resource you and connect you with other people, and that coordinating things, that's always important. But they're probably going to say, oh my gosh, thank you, I'm so glad, I did not have time to do this, and I really was hoping somebody would volunteer. I'm so grateful for you, instead of being told like, you don't have the authority to do that, like they're not going to tell you, most likely. If you have great people in your organization, like they're probably not going to say, that's not your job, shut up, sit down. They're probably going to say, oh my gosh, I would love to have you lead this because we are at capacity as leaders and we need all of our organization members and allies and liaisons and everyone to step up and to be able to help take some of this burden off of us as queer leaders.
Heck yes. All right. Now, one of the things that we talked about briefly, and I want to dive into a little bit more, is the confluence of an ERG where you will have people from that demographic specifically, as well as allies. And that balance can be a bit tricky. For example, in a Pride ERG, it is important that Alphabet Mafia individuals are being heard and leading the charge. But at the same time, if allies aren't included, it can feel like you're kind of speaking into a vacuum or an echo chamber of people that all agree that this needs to be done, but maybe a bunch of the doers and the people that need to be doing are not in the room. How do you find this balance within Prism?
We haven't really struggled with this. We love our allies. They are a vital part of our community. All of our leaders are queer. All of our most active members are queer. So this has really naturally worked itself out for us because like we would love if more allies were interested. And so that would be my kind of counter to that, is that like you do not have to be queer to join an ERG for the LGBTQ community. We need allies. We need parents of queer youth. We need everyone. And sometimes they discover they are once they get in and they learn about, especially the asexual and aromantic spectrums. It's like, oh, actually, I'm demisexual. I did not realize that because I married the first person I was attracted to. And so, it's funny how they'll come in and kind of be like, oh my gosh, that's bisexuality. I think I'm bi. Like, and so it's amazing how this community can do some education work, and these allies can be so vitally important, and it has not necessarily been a problem for us. Our problem is getting people to realize this does affect you, and even if you aren't a parent or queer yourself, please join us and please help in this work.
Yeah, no, I think this is absolutely important. All right. Now, obviously, Power to Fly, we like to celebrate Pride all year long.
Mhm.
What is one way that a person or a business could be sure that they are uplifting their LGBTQIA team members, or celebrating other identities 11 months of the year?
Yeah, we do a lot of work with this. I have actually a visual here for you. So I'm going to pull that up real quick. We have put together this website. This is internal to Esri, but it is a great hub for all of these things. We have our mission prominently. We have all of our events that are coming up. You'll see the Power to Fly Pride Summit featured prominently. We have how to set your pronouns in all of our technology and why you should do this. And according to our brand guidelines, that's also important. We have examples of ways that people have used GIS to support queer advocacy. Highly recommend these organizations here. So we have, even people in our own user community who have created using our products, specific things for the queer community. We also feature our benefits and policies, like our dress code and things like that. And then, of course, our gender affirming healthcare. We have more guidance on sharing your pronouns. Specifically here, we have a page for that, and why you're doing that and all sorts of details there. And we have adapted a glossary. So we're talking inclusive language, going beyond just how to share your pronouns, but actually into what do all these letters mean? And this
Yes.
is a really easy way that people can say, like, I'm not sure what this acronym AMAB, like, what is that? And it's like, well, it's right here,
It means
in this
assigned male
glossary.
at
So
birth.
A to Z, LGBTQIA to Z. And then we have all of our resources as well that are all external resources that people can consult about each specific identity. So for the awareness days, we try to pull these up and feature each of these in our community on Teams, but then keeping them as a hub here as well to say, oh gosh, like I think I'm bi, what do I do now? And there's a whole list
What do I do now?
right. Yeah, exactly.
I don't know what to do.
Right.
Starting now about anything. I need, like, I love
Right.
this. I love this
Exactly.
so much.
Yeah, and then specific allyship resources with Power to Fly is number one. So thank you for putting those together. And then, of course, a lot for parents as well with PFLAG and Trevor Project and Free Mom Hugs, because that
Oh,
is
I
a
love Trevor
huge thing.
Project. I hate
Yeah,
the need for
huge
it, but
thing.
I love that the Trevor Project exists.
Yeah. So
So cool.
I have a few minutes here if we can take questions, but that is the answers to my questions that I have for you.
Awesome. Yeah, if y'all have any questions for Jenna, please feel free to send those in. I actually do have one.
Yeah.
This is I don't like to end on a downer, but I have a real good reason for asking this. What is one mistake you made while founding Prism that you wish you could go back and do over, and what was it?
Um, I think it was caring about other people's opinions too much.
Okay.
Um, that I had all sorts of feedback about why aren't you doing this? And you should be doing this. And any queer organization should be doing XYZ. And it's, sometimes it looks really different. Is that whether there are other LGBTQ organizations outside of the company, or whether there are other ERGs in the company, or whether it's, activists on the internet saying like activism has to look this way. Especially, I think 2020 was a really hard time to adapt, to figure out what is this. If it's not just a fun hangout group where you can be yourself and use your right pronouns and use your correct name and that sort of thing, that was kind of just the original goal, was just that it's a safe place for you to just come and have fun and relax. And then suddenly being thrust into a virtual environment that says, oh, actually, we need to function as a resource group and we needed to change this corporation to be more welcoming. There was a lot of input from people who did not necessarily have a vested stake in it or know what they were talking about. And so I think trusting my gut, trusting my own instincts, while at the same time learning, like it is very helpful to have things like this. But if there are things that I have said today that you're kind of taking away from this, going like, I'm feeling shamed by this, I'm feeling, this is not right, this is not me, then you please discard it. Like, just take whatever is useful to you and trust your gut that your people better than I do. So
I love it. Excellent advice. Thank you, Jenna, so much. This has
yeah,
been
thanks so
really
much.
wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us.
Thank you, Meg.